Welcome to the Connected Growth Coaching Podcast, where we support women to rediscover who they are so they can thrive in all parts of their lives. Your hosts, Jen Heilman and Amanda Kingsley, share with you unique life coaching resources centered around the power of the mind and the ancient practice of feng shui. I think this is a perfect way to start. This week we are talking about the children and creativity area. So laughing was a perfect way to start. I also think we should have prepared a joke to get everyone else laughing. I'm not a joke teller, so
I'm not either. I'm the worst.
You all are just going to have to giggle with us. And if you're curious what we were giggling about, was mostly the fact that every time we record a podcast, we're like, how do we do this? What do we do? Because we're such intuitive, sensitive people, right. And we're really just not business.
No, right. We're not like numbers and doing all the tactical things. And
how do we record a podcast?
Right.
Wait, we're on episode 17.
Yes.
So once again, this week we are talking about the children and creativity area. Mm-hmm. So pull out your Bagua map, download it from the links. If you don't have it, find it on our websites. Google Bagua map, but that's what we talk about on this podcast. So children and creativity is, and I said last week that one of my biggest feng shui stories comes from this area. It is a really fun place to work in, which makes sense, right? I guess that makes sense. But it's fun because it always surprises me. Like whenever I work in this area, I am just so almost stumped and confused, but not in a bad way. Just like, whoa, that's not what I was expecting to happen. And I love that. So Jen, what is the most important thing that we and the listeners should know about this area?
So, wow. The one thing, there's so many things. So this area, they call it the creativity and children area because there's a level of innocence, that comes with being a child and the creativity that flows out of you as a child, right? And when you think back to being a child, the things that you enjoyed and the imagination, that you engaged in and the creativity, you didn't care about what other people were thinking of you, or you just let it flow and you were excited about it. And there was a level of joy that filled you up, right? And this area is very much directly related to joy and the level of joy that we allow ourselves to feel, right? And creativity is a big stumper for a lot of people. I hear it all the time. I'm not a creative person. I'm not a creative person. Because they see creativity as being an artist, being the painter with the easel and, or in a studio, creating sculptures or, whatever creativity means to you. And it doesn't mean that, it's creativity is as unique as the human being that you are. Your creativity flows through you in a completely unique way. What lights you up, what brings you joy is unique to you. And so we touched on this in another podcast. You could be a math whiz, and be scribbling formulas on the chalkboard, and that is your joy. That's your place of losing time and being joyful. It doesn't mean that you are creating a piece of art, but in some ways you are, right? You're doing these amazing things with the mathematics that you're creating. And so, you could be a gardener. That could be your joy, and creating life in your garden. Cooking is a great form of creativity and expressing your love, for your loved ones through your cooking. But it tends to be more physical in the sense that like it's almost like coming through you and out of you, but it can be a service as well.
Yeah,
right?
because I think of creativity often in the problem solving realm.
Yes,
It's like,
exactly.
well, what if I look at it with just like my world, right?
Right.
What if we
Yes.
look at it this way? So it's like, how can I see this differently? And it
Right.
doesn't necessarily have to be, it doesn't have to be artistic or
Right.
beautiful. It's just
Right.
like, there's another way to look at this. Like,
Mhm.
what would, what are the other options here? And when you were
Right.
talking about kids, I just kept thinking, like, no matter what situation kids are in, they have so much joy. Like, you see, like, pictures in other countries that where it's just such a different lifestyle than us. It's just filled with joy. Or the kids who come to school from all different experiences at home, and they're just filled with joy. Like, and you do lose that at a certain point. And so it takes practice and awareness and intention to bring it back. But everyone had it at some point.
Right. And it lives inside of you, right? It lives in
Yeah.
there. And the joy often comes through in this form of creativity that we've lost touch with.
Yeah.
So we haven't necessarily lost touch with our joy, right? Which we have, but it's hiding under this level of creativity that we're not allowing ourselves to engage in, right? Because this creativity, for some reason, we've been told, or we have a story around it, that we can't bring it out into the world, right?
And also that it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you could be doing something more productive than painting.
Right. Exactly.
But when you actually take the time to paint or write or dance, the other productive activities that come next come so much smoother and more effective. Like, when you sit down to work on your business after you've danced, like, it's so much more effective than if you have not like loosened up those creative juices.
Right. I think that often comes from this story of this fear around, as children, having the dream of being a ballerina, or having the dream of being, a famous artist or whatever. And our parents go, you'll never make money doing that, right? You can't make a living doing that.
Right. Oh, that's so true.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
right.
you may not
acting, singing.
Right.
Even sports. I mean, there's certainly a
Mhm.
creative element to sports because it is about expression. Creativity is about expression. And I know for my teen daughter, like, she shines in sports.
Yes.
Like, that is where her true personality comes through. And those are all the things that we tell kids, like, well, that's fun, but enjoy it while you're a kid, because you can't do it later.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Wild.
So it's this level of suppression, right? And so somehow in our world, we're suppressing that expression, right? So I always think of the creativity area, and I know we'll talk more about this when we do a series on chakras and relating them to the different Bagua areas. But this area always brings up, probably because it's part of my truth, but it brings up the throat chakra, which is directly related to the creativity area. And it's all about expressing yourself, expressing your truth, speaking your truth, but expressing yourself authentically, right? And really tapping into that creativity zone that is uniquely yours, and expressing it in a way that brings you joy, right? And so many of us are suppressing that because we've been told that it's not worthy of whatever the story is,
Or and it doesn't have to be outright. Like, someone might have just laughed at you when you drew a picture of a person, and you were like, "Ooh, done with that. I better not do that again."
Right. Exactly.
Or maybe you did get up and dance during whatever, and you felt like a fool, and then you never did it again. So it's not like always an outright, like, you shouldn't do that. It's just that moment. And it's so unpredictable. Like, I was doing a whole bunch of money work recently, just like processing my stories. And this one story that starts all of the like core of my money beliefs is so innocent. It's like a nothing conversation between me and another child. And so when we say like someone stumped your creativity by like shutting you down, it might not even be something that you can consciously remember.
Right, exactly.
It might be just this little moment where you were in kindergarten and you shared a picture at show and tell, and some kid was like, doesn't look like a bear to me.
Right, yeah.
And you were like, what? It doesn't look like a bear?
Right. I actually, whenever we talk about creativity, I think of this one particular story of being in the art room at our local elementary school, right? Which is now the gym because we had a huge class. Anyways, that's a side story there. But being in the art room and sitting next to one of my best friends, and she was doing this really beautiful painting. And I remember looking at mine and being like, how does she do that?
Comparison starts that little. Yeah.
Right. How did she do that? And how come I can't do it as well? Or she just was like going in the flow. She was just in the flow of creativity and just letting it all come out. And I was looking at my paper going, how do I make that? Right? Like, how do I do that? How do I just let that come out of me and just like go with it, right? Let it flow.
Yeah.
And I was just in such a stay between the lines kind of world that I didn't understand letting it flow. So that story always comes up for me. It's a very, it's probably third grade. So
yeah. I know, it's these little moments, and they happen. Like I think about these moments that have shaped me, and I think, oh my goodness, the way I've shaped my kids, like it's totally unpredictable. I have no idea, because sometimes it's not obvious.
No.
So,
and she of course has nothing, like to do with that story. She was just letting herself,
her own creativity shine.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but it's amazing how those, so you're right. It isn't always this like finger shaking in your face, like don't do that kind of thing. It's something, and it's probably more often like my story, right? Where it's just benign situation and you just all of a sudden realize
it shut you down in some way.
Yeah, exactly. So
bringing that back to light.
Bring it back around.
Bring it back to light. I always find it interesting, like, and my second question on all of these Bagua interviews has been like, how does working in this area affect your smaller unit, like you and your family and your intimate circle? And then how does it affect the big picture? Like you might be thinking, well, I could get creative, we're recording around the holiday season. So maybe I'll get creative with my family for the holidays. But what does that have to do with my career? Right? Like nothing. But it does. And so tell me about like how you see creativity affecting like that smaller personal unit, and then the bigger picture. Like
for me, of course it's my unique story is around my authentic expression, like really finding my voice. Like it literally is around my voice, and finding that. And so for me, it's requesting things of my family verbally, recognizing when something is bothering me and expressing it to them in a way that is compassionate and not, but firm in the sense that like, this is affecting me and I really wish you could help me, find a way to the compromise of this. Right. And so I have found in doing this work around, basically empowering my voice again, and my creative flow and all that kind of stuff, that I'm able to say things to my family in a way that they can hear me, right? And they can hear it and not get offended by it, right? Because I'm not speaking it in a way that I'm meaning to like lash out at them or anything like that. It's just that I'm saying it in a way that, hey, this is affecting me. Can you help me out with it? Right. Right. And they're responding. And so I feel like that is, I'm speaking my truth in a way that the people I love most can hear it, and they can respond in a way that's supportive. And so it's just helping that level of communication.
So that's a great example
Yeah.
of how much that changes you being able to authentically express yourself.
Yeah.
And then when you get to work, when you're at the grocery store, when you're
Right.
in the bigger world, like
Mm.
that's going to ripple out so wide.
Right.
Obviously, it's helping with your family, but like when you do this work, it starts to change from this really self-growth place, but then it just ripples out so widely. So I think with the creativity area in particular, it's hard to imagine how me like dancing or singing or painting again is going to make my life better. Of course it sounds fun, but I don't have time for that. And the point is like you dancing or singing or painting literally affects your voice and how you express yourself in the world.
Right.
You know, in a conversation with your kid's school, in a conversation with your boss, in a conversation with a client. The connection seems almost wacky,
right?
Like, but it's so.
Yeah, it's just expression, right? And it doesn't always mean verbally expressing yourself. Like you can express yourself.
And the way you stand up.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
The way you are physically.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's just, shining your light in a different way, right? It's like being more present in who you are and owning who you are and that uniqueness that that flows through you. It's really kind of tapping into that uniqueness and feeling empowered by it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what are the big do's and don'ts for this area?
So this area is ruled, like we talk about the elements, the 5-element practice of feng shui. This area is ruled by metal. So that is, it can be represented literally in metal, right? Or the color white. I think it's almost more important to put things in this area that make you feel creative, right? That kind of are a nod to, or a very large nod to that self-expression, right? Like what makes you happy? Like what lights you up? For me, of course, feng shui is a form of creativity for me. I love looking at people's spaces and finding solutions for them. I love it. I love looking at people's floor plans and seeing that, oh my gosh, like your money area has 2 huge doors on either end of it. Do you have, is there plenty of money coming in, but then it goes right back out and they go, oh my God, like you described that, perfectly. I love that, like being able to formulate those kinds of things and then formulating the solution for them to try and, of course you want the money flowing in, but like you don't want it constantly flowing out. So here's what you can do, that sort of thing.
So cool.
Yeah. So that is a form of creativity for me. So of course, having some nod to feng shui, or maybe even just like a house or space or, living environment in my creativity area would be ideal for me. So, if you're a dancer, if you love dancing, even if you just are a kitchen, dance party, before dinner kind of person.
Yeah, right.
Like some kind of, music or something that lights you up, that kind of thing to put in there and inspire that feeling of joy, right? That feeling of getting lost in the moment and losing time. I always think of when I was in architecture school and the all-nighters we would have to pull, to get the projects done. And I would just lose time. I would totally lose time because I loved doing the work.
Yeah.
And so that's the type of joy and flow that the creativity area brings. So yes, we can touch on metals and
whites and things that bring you joy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
What about things that remind you of your childlike self?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Yeah, having pictures. I have pictures of my kids from the time they were like just weeks old to the time that they were like 3. And they're in frames that
Right.
are in white and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the joy on their faces is
Right.
just like, I love it.
Mine's in my bathroom. I have pictures of all my babies like coming out of the shower. Like we just loved showering with our kids. Like we weren't a big bath family, but like we would shower with them and it was the best. They'd fall asleep on us or just laugh the whole time. So we have those pictures in there of them all toweled up in their little ducky towels and stuff. But then also a picture of me at probably like 6. And I'm like, you remember when you used to, maybe you don't, but lay in the bathtub and just like swish your hair around?
Oh my God. Yeah. Like a mermaid.
Feeling. So there's a picture of me at that age, just like underwater, swishing my hair around. And just having this conversation reminds me to like, that picture's been in there for a long time, but I
thought that was Liv, actually.
Oh,
I didn't know that was of you. Yeah.
So I kind of lost the energy around just looking at it and just bringing that back and looking at that and remembering that. It's
awesome picture.
Yeah, because we do the feng shui. I probably put that in there 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years ago. And it would remind me of that feeling when I looked at it, but it's been in there so long that I literally, until this conversation, I forget to look at it in that way. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes that's
what are the don'ts though?
The don'ts. The don'ts are, of course, clutter and anything that's making you feel blocked. But the fire is definitely an element that doesn't mix with metal because it melts metal.
Yeah.
So it's a destructive, it's destructive to the metal energy. So I would say that fire is probably the one thing that I would keep out of there. But yeah. Or any kind of like,
Kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, cool. All right. So for our listeners who don't dive in full force like we do. And I love that we have so many listeners who do dive in full force. But if someone were just new to the podcast or new to the concepts or just hasn't really gone full force, what's one thing, if you were going to go do one thing,
right,
when they get home or right now, what would it be?
I would just add something metallic. I'm like looking at your canisters on your counter. They're copper canisters, like you could put something like that in there and fill it with something,
metal.
Yeah. Or I think of like a little sculptural, I have a metal bird sculpture, like something most people have, those kinds of things. I have a metal Ganesh, something like that. That's just, I would find if you don't have anything that's like artistic or, creative in that realm, silverware, you could like use, if it's like a cabinet with a drawer, you can put some silverware in there,
get creative
with it. Yeah. Because this area really is like the solution tree, right? It's like having,
it's funny.
That
mine
solution.
is my bathroom.
Yeah.
And so some of the metal I have in there is like rusty. I just changed the rusty shower curtain.
Right.
Oh, it's a big story.
Mm-hmm.
But like my toilet paper holder is metal and it drives me crazy. And I should probably just go spend $12 on a new one.
Exactly. So you can see the shiny metal.
Yeah.
Right.
Spice back up the creativity in there.
Exactly.
All right. Well, let me just tell my one thing story super quick because I think we're coming up on about 20 minutes and we'll take a little break and talk about a few journal prompts / like, how do you think about this stuff from the inside? How do you really make these changes stick? But my story is I was in Jen's group and I was feeling really behind on the work she was doing. This was a group she ran a few years back, couple of years at least.
And Abundance Academy.
I was really like overwhelmed, but I wanted to catch back up. And I was like, Jen, just tell me one thing to do. Because she knows I always listen and I will do it. And I always shui with like really big intention. A lot of like, I choose my thoughts when I'm doing the work. And I set an intention and I'm very aware. So she was like, I don't even remember what you said, but like, just clean the whatever she said, I ended up cleaning one tiny little corner in my bathroom behind like the, cabinet where our toothbrushes sit. So I pulled the cabinet out and I literally just like vacuumed the dust. I wiped down the walls and I cleaned the cabinet and I put it back. And sure enough, one day later, my washer and dryer, which are in that room, break. Totally shut down. And I'm like, thanks, Jen. That was helpful. Yay. But this is often what happens to me, is that there'll be some like shift where I'm like, oh, great. That was not helpful. Mm-hmm. So what happened is that because my washer and dryer broke down, I had to get really creative about how I was going to find the money to replace the washer and dryer. And so I ended up like looking at how I could refinance the house, realizing that I had way more equity than I thought I did, took out this refinance loan, got our rate down from like 4% to 2%. Wow. Like all these amazing things happened with our house and making that shift. Of course, it brought us the money we needed to replace the washer and dryer, but then to do all these other things that were really important to us at the time and way lower our interest rate. And so that was incredible. And then at the same time, my husband got a raise, and like through all of it, it was like $40,000 that came into our life. And some people will be like, well, that didn't come into your life. You had the equity on your house anyway. Right. But it's like,
but you didn't see it.
No, I didn't see it. I didn't realize it was there. I completely lowered our interest rate. I think we even lowered we went from like a 20-year loan to a 15-year loan. Like huge. The whole thing was just amazing. And so it was just this intentional cleaning of this corner in my creativity area that led to a broken washer and dryer. And I was like, there's got to be more to this story. Right. And sure enough, $40,000 later, there was. So I'm going to go clean that corner after I think so. Because I really could use that again right now. But yeah, and so every single time I work, I just need to shift the shower curtain in my bathroom, and it triggered an argument with my husband. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Jen, really? And then I had just in the last few days massive shifts in my awareness and like huge breakthroughs and all kinds of things shifting and changing that were so necessary and needed. So, right. I mean,
to get you to the next level. I mean, that's huge.
That was a week ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And look at what's happened since, because I changed the shower curtain.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It wasn't even the curtain; it was the rod.
Right. Exactly.
But anyway,
so
that area for me, more than any other area, it must just bring me right back to my childlike spirit, and then the world is at my fingertips.
Right. Wow, that's a really powerful
It's point. Like that. I have to be careful in that area. I mean, I say that about all feng shui because I can't keep up with it. It's like things change so fast. I'm like, whoa, I got to settle in and process. Right. But that area in particular is just wildly powerful.
Right. Yeah. So if you are struggling, right, to find a solution to something that's going on in the other areas of your life, not even directly associated with creativity, right? But looking for a solution, this is the area that you want to sweep or clap or,
a solution to a problem in your relationship, a problem with your money anything, just
career, anything.
See what happens. Right. So get in there and allow it to do its thing.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap up quick here. We'll come back with some simple and powerful questions for you. Let's face it, no two lives are the same, and there are no one-size-fits-all tips and tricks. We love connecting with you on the podcast, but remember that if you want game-changing results, one-on-one coaching is where it's at. You can access our programs at connectedgrowthcoaching.com. And we will walk you through the unique circumstances that arise in your life and your home. All right, I'm going to be really quick today. I always recommend that you get out a pen and paper, and I can't even tell you, like, this just happened to me last night where I was like, I don't need to write that down. Sure enough, I write it down. I'm like, oh, I hadn't realized that part. So I always recommend you get a pen and paper and just like bucket list the things that used to light you up when you were a kid, right? The things that light you up now. You know, it can be anything. It can be dancing. It can be decorating. It can be cooking. It can be coloring. Like when this whole coloring craze came out, I was like, this is so great for people. Coloring, singing, dancing, playing games, but just kind of bucket list them all out. So they're sitting there in front of you and you can start to pick and choose and just try and do one thing every day that makes you feel a little lighter, a little happier, a little more spirited and joyful, and see what shifts in your life.
I would even add being out in nature.
Yes, right? For sure.
When we were kids, we spent hours in the woods playing, just walking, playing in the brook.
Playing in the brook. Yeah. So much playing in the brook. Climbing trees. Picking flowers. Being out in nature is huge. But what just sort of brings you into that zone where you're like kind of lose yourself. You lose yourself in that passion and that joy. That's the place you want to get to, because it is like a meditative state.
It is.
That's the place that allows you to just loosen up and let go and make room for the solutions to the problems that have been, bothering you, whether it's things at work or in your family or in your relationship or personally. Like, it is a very meditative thing to bring yourself to that childlike space and make room and allow things to start flowing again. So as silly as it sounds, crank up those tunes and find your inner child again, because she or he will bring you magic, maybe even $40,000.
Yeah.
And the second thing I would say is, in terms of expression and self-expression, again, I'm going to come right back to the journal. Like, one of the safest places to express yourself is pen to paper. Even if you write something that you're like scared someone will find, burn it, tear it up, shred it, bury it, throw it in the river. I mean, okay, now we're littering, but really the point is, like, writing is such a powerful way to express yourself to yourself. And that's how it starts. It really has to start with seeing what's really happening in you and through you, and then being able to carry that out to just one more safe person, and then eventually to be able to really show up in the world as your authentic self, and express yourself in a really uninhibited, powerful, and meaningful way. So that's it. I'm going to keep it that short and just say, once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. We've had some amazing sharing happening, which is really just lights us up.
So beautiful.
So sharing, reviewing, anything you do to help us share the podcast is so helpful. And go get your shui on. Until next week.
Bye-bye.
As always, thanks for listening. If you learned something today that can help the people in your circle, please help us get the word out by sharing. When you leave us a rating and review on iTunes, it not only warms our hearts, but it helps people find us. We are eternally grateful for your support, and we're looking forward to connecting with you next week. Until then, you can find the show notes at www.connectedgrowthcoaching.com. You can grab your journal and then get your shui on.